Hello, good morning from the far north of Scotland. This video is a little bit, I think the phrase is on the hoof, so we'll just see how it goes. This is in relation to the video I put out last, where I talked about various things about the COVID vaccine and articles relating to that, and also Ukraine and Israel-Palestine. And in fact, even climate change. That was quite broad-reaching, wasn't it? Anyway, I noticed that when I put the video up, comments, it was pointed out that comments were not actually appearing. They are now, so that's good. But some comments didn't and still haven't appeared. Now, I think the modern phrase is I reached out to somebody who had actually commented, and the comment hadn't appeared. And I was speaking with them, and I thought they made some really interesting points. Useful points, additional points to my, I suppose, relatively scant information, and so I wanted to make note of that in this video. So in my video, I'd explained that the West, shall we say, the collective West, were in violation of various treaties and agreements that had been made with Russia with regard to the status situation of Ukraine, which of course has a border with Russia. And I said that Putin had been pointing out, asking, imploring really the collective West to honour agreements that had been made and treaties that had been signed, because the inevitable outcome, if they didn't, would be conflict. Now, that's all true, but there's also additional information which I think is very, very pertinent, and that was that William Burns. Now, William Burns is currently head of the C.I.A. Obviously in the United States, and he had been an ambassador to Russia, and he had told both Condoleezza Rice and Victoria Newlands that there was a firm red line for Russia, for the Russian people, not just for Putin, but for the people, and that would involve Ukraine and N.A.T.O membership. And what he actually said to Condoleezza Rice and Victoria Newlands was that we, the collective West, must back off from the continuing pressure for membership of NATO for Ukraine, the pressure that we were putting on Russia. And he told both Condoleezza Rice and Victoria Newlands that the collective West must back off. And that was his advice to them. They must back off. This was well before the conflict. But he could see where this was going. And obviously, he's not a fool. I mean, he's head of the C.I.A. now. Perhaps a worthy appointment to ensure that he doesn't say anything else about the matter. So that was one point, and further, I suppose, evidence, if you like, that this was thoroughly avoidable. And as I say, pointed out to a subscriber and somebody whose comment had not and still has not at this point appeared. If it does, this is now surplus information. You'll be able to read it yourselves. The next thing that was pointed out to me in the comments from this commentator was that about NATO's relevance. I mean, NATO was established to keep the peace in Europe. And of course, what did we have? What have we had in Europe? I mean, not around the world, but in Europe, we have had peace and stability. And our relationship with Russia had become, quite frankly, to become extremely friendly. Russia was sending us cheap gas through pipelines and oil, which was helping Europe with its industrial growth. So relations were extremely good. Now, the problem with that, if you have harmony and peace in Europe, is that NATO, which was established to maintain that, becomes increasingly irrelevant. And so what did we see? We see that the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, firstly, clearly inevitable, clearly, because of the actions of the collective West against the advice of very influential people, powerful people like William Burns, as I say again, head of the CIA in the United States. NATO becomes relevant again. NATO is deeply involved in the conflict. Well, I mean, of course, they're not now because it's not really gone as they would have perhaps wanted it, or perhaps it doesn't matter. The point is, whatever happens, i.e. the inevitable defeat, if you like, of the Ukrainian forces, NATO has suddenly become relevant again and can justify its existence and its importance and its necessary existence. So, jobs for the boys been maintained. Success all around. Now, another thing, if we leave the Ukraine issue, another thing that was pointed out was when I'd been talking about the COVID vaccinations, and I mentioned a chap called Burkhardt. Now, this is Arne Burkhardt. Arne Burkhardt is now has passed away recently, but he was a very eminent pathologist, very, very well known worldwide. And what Arne Burkhardt had done was research into the spike protein and finding ways in which you could recognise the difference between the spike protein present from the virus and the spike protein present from the injection from the vaccine. And he had in fact been able to do this, and as a consequence, he was a pathologist, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that, but he was a pathologist. As a result of this research and his ability to identify the virus spike protein, if you like, and the vaccine spike protein, he was able, through pathologies, to establish that the deaths caused in the vaccinated population were caused by the spike protein in the vaccine, not caused by the spike protein from the virus. Now, that's maybe a minor point, but it's actually not. It's significant because it is regularly trotted out that myocarditis and heart issues and so forth, this is a consequence, perhaps to some degree, of the vaccine in very rare cases, but is also a very common effect of the virus, of COVID-19 as a virus. As I say, that's what's trotted out, perhaps as a little bit of a distraction. Arne Burkhardt, on the other hand, showed otherwise. He showed that the myocarditis and the problems with the heart were in fact caused by the spike protein in the vaccine. So they were some interesting, important points that were brought to light from somebody who tried to put these comments up after my last video, but for whatever reason, I mean, I suppose a glitch in YouTube somewhere, those comments to date haven't appeared. So I wanted to actually put them out there for you folks. It's not from me, it's from a subscriber, but I thought they were important enough to mention. I would like, just as a conclusion, just to lighten the mood of things, because I know that I do sound rather apocalyptic all the time, don't I? I don't mean to be. I wanted to read something that I found recently. It's rather amusing, so bear with me, and please understand that this is to make you guys smile. And this is to do with the section that where I mentioned briefly climate change. And please understand, I do not deny in any way that the climate of this planet changes. It certainly does. I mean, in mass extinctions, not only through cataclysmic events, but also from climate change, extinction of species and so forth. It's not something that we're going to stop, and it's not something that we shouldn't expect. Anyway, here we go. I'm going to quote now. I'm reading, so apologies for my poor reading. And in some places, the seals are finding the water too hot, according to the Commerce Department yesterday from the US Consulate at Bergen in Norway. Reports from fishermen, seal hunters and explorers all point to a radical change in climate conditions and hitherto unheard of temperatures in the Arctic zone. Exploration expeditions report that scarcely any ice has been met as far north as 81 degrees 29 minutes. Soundings to a depth of 3,100 metres showed that the Gulf Stream was still very warm. Great masses of ice have been replaced by moraines of earth and stones, the report continues, whilst at many points well-known glaciers have entirely disappeared. Very few seals and no whitefish are found in the eastern Arctic, while vast shoals of herring and smelts, which have never before ventured this far north, are being encountered in the old seal fishing grounds. Within a few years, it is predicted that due to the ice melt and the sea level rise, will make most coastline cities uninhabitable. Now, am I quoting something from last week, last month, or last year, or the year before, when we were made aware of the climate crisis that we were facing? Well, no, unfortunately not. What I'm actually quoting from is the Washington Post, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, the Washington Post. And the report is dated the 2nd of November, 1922. I'll repeat that. That's the 2nd of November, 1922. That's 96 years ago. I actually don't know that. I couldn't have worked that out quickly. That was actually there after the quote for me to state. So, interesting, because we've heard that one before, haven't we? Not so long back. And yeah, that was in 1922. Now, yeah, climate change does occur. It will occur. It does change. How much of it is human created? Well, I don't think that what we're doing is the thing that's going to tip us over the balance. I mean, as I said in the previous video, we're at historically quite low, well, historically actually very low carbon dioxide levels. The environment, the climate may not be absolutely wonderful for us in future times, but they will be for something else, and the climate does change. We haven't been here since the creation of the planet, and we'll just have to see. We must adapt, we must change. If we don't adapt and we don't change, then as a species, yes, of course we have problems, but so have many other species that are no longer here. That was one thing, and another one just for light amusement again, in fact more amusing than the last one probably, that was maybe apocalyptic. It's not apocalyptic because of course it hasn't happened. It was something I found out about termites. Now, we want to control farming and we want to get rid of cattle herds because of course the emissions from them is destroying the planet. As indeed our motor cars are and our aeroplanes are, not private jets of course. There's exclusions for private jets. I wonder why that is. It's perhaps because people like you and I don't have private jets because we can't afford them. People who are vastly wealthy or in government and therefore thoroughly important, they do have them. So they have an exemption from all of this. But anyway, termites emit more methane than do cows. And what I mean by that is, I don't mean that per individual, obviously not, the termite is rather smaller, but termites on the planet are producing more methane, which is going into the atmosphere, than are all the cows on the planet. So here's a question. Is it fair to kill off the cows, who have no idea what they're doing, of course, and allow the termites to exist. Actually, in the United States, for those few of you who are listening in the United States, as I understand it, termites are a terrible problem there with some of your absolutely beautiful houses, your timber houses. They're absolutely stunning houses, really are. But I think you have a termite problem with them, don't you? So maybe you ought to lobby government over there to rather than exterminate the cows, the cattle, exterminate the termites. Goodness knows what that does to the food chains and predator chains and so forth. But there we go. Some little interesting add-ons. So an on the hoof video. I hope that gives a little bit more information to you folks out there, and I will speak to you all later. And for now, thank you very much indeed, and bye bye for now.